Once upon a time, we see a huge monster resembling a wolf, but it's incredibly massive. Standing before it are the protagonist and 5 other people, who are utterly shocked and terrified, unsure of what to do. The monster's eyes spark with lightning, and its fangs are enormous. Suddenly, we discover that it can speak. It looks at them and says, "Humans." Then we flash back. The protagonist is with other people, surrounded by bright light and strong winds. The protagonist is confused about what's happening. The people with him are dressed in normal clothes from their world. As soon as the light and wind fade, they find themselves in front of people wearing strange attire. These people call out to them, saying, "Heroes." Not only that, but the strange people explain that a miracle has occurred, which is why the heroes responded to their call and came to this world to save them. Then, someone steps forward and says, "Allow me to assess your abilities." When he assesses them, one of the heroes is found to be wielding a sacred sword, which is an incredibly powerful ability. Another one is capable of using holy magic, and a third person can use light, wind, lightning, and ice magic. The people are amazed and begin pleading with these heroes to save the kingdom of Regser. However, our dear protagonist is standing all the way at the back, unnoticed by anyone, and his abilities haven't been evaluated. While watching everything, he deduces that he was summoned to another world as a hero to save it. At that moment, the man evaluating abilities finally notices that there's another hero. He approaches to assess his ability, and that's when the shocking revelation happens. The protagonist's name is Makuta. He is 27 years old, and his unique skill is online shopping. The man is shocked, Makuta is shocked, and the heroes who came with him are shocked. No one in this new world even understands what online shopping means, and they don't know whether this ability is useful at all. Makuta feels extremely embarrassed, so he asks the man, "Don't I have any other skills?" The man tells him that this is the only skill he possesses. Makuta feels even more humiliated, realizing that the 3 heroes who came with him seem incredibly strong, while he, in contrast, is completely weak. The man tells him that since he was summoned, he must meet His Majesty the King along with the others, even if he has no skills. So they go to meet the king. The king explains that the Demon King has been attacking the kingdom from time to time. This king is very fat and wears a lot of jewelry. He asks the heroes to help protect the kingdom by defeating the Demon King. Then he tells them that the Demon King is the only one who knows how to send them back to their world. One of the heroes responds confidently, saying they won't allow the Demon King to make the people suffer and that they will fight him. However, unlike the others, the protagonist feels that something is off. So he steps forward and tells the king that he doesn't think he's actually a hero because his skill is completely useless. He adds that if he stays with them, he'll only cause them trouble and get in their way. The king gives Makuta 20 gold coins and lets him leave. Makuta takes the money and walks away, but he has no idea if this amount is a lot or little in this world. As he walks through the streets, people keep staring at him because his clothes are completely different from what they wear. He tells himself that as long as he's dressed like this, he'll always stand out as suspicious. So he decides to buy new clothes before doing anything else. He finds clothes more suitable for this world, buys them, and then begins exploring, gathering the information he needs. He starts looking for a place to stay and eventually finds a room. The first thing he says to himself when he's alone in the room is that he's glad he didn't rush into becoming a hero and fighting. He also tells himself that the king was very suspicious, and the fact that he was covered in jewelry makes him feel even more uneasy. Because of this, he decides that the first thing he needs to do is leave the kingdom of Regser and go to another country. Then he sits down and wonders if he can open his status screen like in manga and anime. He says, "Open status," and sure enough, a screen appears in front of him, displaying all his details. Makuta is level 1, his skills include appraisal, and he has an item box. His unique skill is online shopping. He tells himself that thanks to the item box, he won't have to carry a lot of things while traveling. However, he doesn't know how to activate his online shopping skill. So he tries saying, "Oh, online shopping appear," but nothing happens. Then he taps on the words online shopping on the screen, and suddenly it transports him to an online shopping page filled with tons of products, all from his original world. But he's only allowed to pay with the currency of this new world. He decides to test it by buying a bottle of water and some food. The system asks him to pay first, just like normal online shopping, but he doesn't know where to put the money. So he takes the money from his pocket and carefully places it against the screen. And it works. The screen absorbs the money, and as soon as the order is confirmed, a box suddenly appears next to him at lightning speed. Inside the box are the items he just purchased. Makuta tells himself that his skill isn't a combat skill, and it's a good thing the officials don't know what it really is. He also realizes that as long as he has this skill, he will never go hungry. Not only that, he could make money from it too. Makuta tells himself that there's no reason to stay in this suspicious kingdom anymore. He asks around for the nearest country country to register, and people tell him there's a place called Keels from which he can cross the border. Mukuda heads to the area where travelers board carriages. He finds a ride on a horse-drawn wagon and sits next to a merchant. Mukuda asks the merchant, "What do you trade in?" The merchant replies, "Soap." He also tells Mukuda that soap is considered a luxury product. Mukuda is surprised that the merchant doesn't have a lot of bags, so he asks if he has an item box to store all his soap. But the merchant tells him that all his soap fits in his small backpack, and that very few people own an item box, only about 1 in 1,000. Mukuda wants to learn more about this world, so he asks about the appraisal skill. The merchant tells him that appraisal is a skill everyone dreams of having, but unfortunately, it's only possessed by heroes from other worlds, a few guilds, and certain nations. He also explains that appraisal is not a skill just anyone can obtain. The merchant then asks Mukuda, "Why are you traveling to Keels?" Mukuda replies, "I want to cross the border to another country." The merchant responds, "That's the best decision you could make. The kingdom of Regsur is full of problems." And he also tells him to travel quickly because he has heard rumors that they are going to close all the borders and ban travel. When Mukuda arrives in Keels, he learns from the people that the borders have been closed to prevent anyone from escaping the country. Since when people flee, the number of soldiers in the army also decreases. Since travel is banned and the roads are filled with monsters, and Mukuda needs to travel but is clearly weak and won't be able to defeat the monsters alone, he hires adventurers to protect him on the journey. However, because of the travel restrictions, the cost is much higher and he has to pay 8 gold coins. This is when Mukuda meets Werner, who is the leader of the adventurer party that will escort and protect him until they reach the kingdom of Verna. Werner introduces Mukuda to the rest of the team, which consists of Vincent, the swordsman, Rita, the scout, Ramon, the mage, Franca, the healer. They begin their journey, and when they stop at an inn, Mukuda cooks for them. He brings food from his own world and prepares it for them in their world. The moment they taste it, they absolutely love it, saying they're glad they accepted the job of escorting Mukuda. As they continue traveling, whenever they encounter any monster or danger, they eliminate it immediately. Mukuda keeps cooking for them, using ingredients he buys online from his world, but he doesn't let anyone know about his ability because he is afraid. One time, he cooks them soup, and when they eat it, they all become silent. He thinks they don't like it, but suddenly, in unison, they all start asking for more. They also say that the food makes them feel incredibly energized and stronger. Mukuda thinks they might be exaggerating, so he uses appraisal on Rita. To his shock, her stats actually increase just from eating his food. This is when Mukuda realizes the true value of his skill in this world. At the same time, something huge is following them from behind, watching them. We don't know what it is. The group continues their journey, and then suddenly, they encounter a wild boar. But since they are highly skilled adventurers, they take it down instantly. They take its horns to sell and start cutting up the meat, but there's too much of it. They say it would be a waste to leave it behind. Mukuda suggests storing the meat in his item box, and they agree and thank him. At night, Mukuda grills the meat, but he seasons it with spices from his world. When they eat it, they lose control and are completely amazed by the flavor. As Mukuda is talking with them, they suddenly stop speaking, their faces frozen in fear as they stare behind him. Mukuda turns around and sees a massive wolf-like creature with red legs and sparking eyes. Suddenly, the creature speaks and says, "Humans, give me some of that meat you're eating." Mukuda quickly offers the creature all the meat he just cooked, and the creature devours it instantly and asks for more. Mukuda then grills more meat with the same seasoning, and the creature eats it just as quickly and demands even more. So Mukuda keeps cooking, and this continues until the creature is finally full. At that moment, the creature looks at Mukuda and says, "I can't believe I'm doing this over just some meat." Mukuda doesn't understand what it means. Suddenly, the creature says it will form a contract with him. Mukuda is confused, and when he looks at the adventurers, he sees them hiding behind a rock in fear. Why did he even hire them? Then, Mukuda doesn't want to accept the contract, but he is terrified of the creature. Every time he tries to refuse, the creature bares its fangs at him. When Mukuda looks at the adventurers, they all plead with him to just agree and end this. So he agrees. The creature places its head against Mukuda's forehead, and the contract is formed, though its details remain unclear. Then, the creature tells Mukuda, "I will accompany you on your journey. In exchange, you must feed me 3 times a day." Mukuda is left speechless. How is he supposed to feed this massive creature 3 times a day? Where is he going gonna get all that food? And most importantly, what does he even gain from this deal? After making the contract, the creature asks Mukuta to give him a name. Mukuta says, "I'll name you Pochi," but the creature doesn't like the name at all and says that it lowers his status. Mukuta suggests other names, but the creature yells at him because he dislikes all of them. Then Mukuta says, "Since you're a Fenrir, how about I name you Fel?" The creature likes the name and agrees that from now on, his name will be Fel. As they walk, people look at them and avoid them because Fel is walking with them. Later, Werner seems uneasy and worried, so Mukuta asks him about the reason. Werner explains to Mukuta that they will definitely reach a checkpoint at the borders of another country, and since Fel once destroyed an entire town on his own, it will be difficult to let him enter. Even if Fel passes the checkpoint and they all get in, people inside the town will be terrified of him. But Fel tells them not to worry and that he will destroy anything that stands in their way. That's exactly what they don't want, dear Fel. Later, Fel asks Mukuta for lunch and specifically for meat, but Mukuta tells him that if he wants to eat meat, he should go hunt because he has run out of it. Fel goes hunting, and Werner and the adventurer team are amazed that Mukuta can command such a terrifying creature like Fel. A little while later, Fel returns with a simple catch. Werner approaches it, looks amazed, and tells Mukuta that this is a rock bird, a B-rank monster, and that he isn't sure if he and his team could even fight such a monster. Ramon says that its claws and beak sell for incredibly high prices. Mukuta offers them the monster in exchange for cutting it up, allowing them to take the beak and claws. Mukuta then starts cooking for them, seasoning the meat properly for bird meat. He gives food to Werner and his team first, telling Fel that he has to wait until the end because he eats too much. Mukuta then prepares tons and tons of meat for Fel. As expected, the entire team eats just a little, while Fel devours the whole rock bird on his own. They continue their journey until they reach the kingdom of Venin. There, they use a spyglass and see the soldiers in a state of readiness, running back and forth in fear. Werner tells Mukuta that they are reacting this way because they are afraid of Fel. Werner suggests that he should go first to reassure the soldiers, and then the rest of the team, including Fel and Mukuta, can follow. Werner goes ahead and successfully convinces the soldiers to talk to them first. Later, the rest of the team, Mukuta, and Fel approach the gate. All the soldiers are terrified, gripping their weapons tightly, watching the legendary creature. The commander asks Mukuta, "Are you really contracted with this creature?" Mukuta confirms, saying, "Yes, I am." The commander responds, "Alright, that's fine and all, but if this creature enters the town and does anything reckless, you will be..." Before he can finish, Mukuta interrupts him and asks Fel, "Are you going to harm them?" Fel replies that he is a legendary creature with intelligence and can distinguish things properly, and he won't hurt anyone as long as no one harms them. The commander allows them to enter the kingdom of Venin. Mukuta warns Fel not to cause any trouble because he will be held responsible, even threatening that if Fel misbehaves, he will be banned from eating. Meanwhile, Werner reassures the commander, saying that he has spent a lot of time with Fel and that during all that time, he was completely normal and never attacked anyone. Rita also tells the commander that Mukuta has complete control over Fel and even orders him to hunt. To enter the kingdom, they all need guild cards. Everyone has one except Mukuta, who hasn't joined any guild yet. He has to pay 7 silver coins, 5 for himself and 2 for Fel. Werner tells Mukuta that if he had a guild card, he wouldn't have to pay anything at all. As soon as they enter the kingdom, Werner warns Mukuta that the king will soon hear about Fel's arrival. Mukuta doesn't want to draw attention and says that he doesn't plan to stay in this kingdom for long anyway. He tells Fel that they will travel the world. Then, he thinks to himself that he will explore this entire world, move around, and earn money from his online grocery store. Werner then suggests that Mukuta should register with either the Merchant Guild or the Adventurer Guild. Mukuta is unsure which one to join, but Franka tells him that he can actually register with both without any problem. After a while, a strange man blocks their path and starts telling Mukuta that he is a servant of a very wealthy man. That rich man heard about the contract between Mukuta and Fel, so he wants to host them at his mansion. Mukuta tries to decline politely, but the man keeps insisting. However, our legendary creature and dear Fel intervenes, scaring the man and saying a firm and frightening no. The man panics and runs away. Werner then says that Fel is incredibly strong and that almost no other creature can stand against him except the legendary dragon, which is why everyone is interested in him. Fel confirms this, saying that he actually fought a dragon 400 years ago. With that, Werner and his team complete their mission, having escorted Mukuta to the Merchant Guild. Mukuta signs to confirm that they have finished their task, thanks them for all the delicious food he cooked for them, bids them farewell, and they leave. Mukuta and Fel also move on. Mukuta tells Fel that he must keep hunting to eat, and then they can sell the valuable parts of the monsters he hunts to earn money. Fel, the big eater, agrees, saying that as long as Mukuta cooks him delicious food in the end, that's all that matters. They arrive at the Merchant Guild, where every everyone is terrified of Fel. There, the receptionist explains to Makuta that the Merchant Guild does not belong to any kingdom. She tells him that there are 5 ranks in the Merchant Guild, and the annual fees, as well as the type and scale of trade, are determined by rank. She asks him what kind of trade he intends to do. Makuta says he wants to be a traveling merchant and might open a food cart later. The receptionist tells him that the lowest rank, iron, would suit him best. Makuta registers as a traveling merchant and receives a guild card. Before leaving, Makuta asks the receptionist if they buy goods there. She says yes, so Makuta tells her that he will return tomorrow with his goods to show her. Makuta rents a room, and since Fel is starving, he starts cooking for him. He prepares each meat slice with a different seasoning and asks for Fel's opinion. Fel is amazed that the same meat can taste so different. Fel ends up liking the garlic seasoned meat the most, but Makuta worries that garlic might have a bad effect on him, like it does on cats and dogs. So, he uses his appraisal skill and is shocked to see that Fel is unbelievably strong. However, the only thing Makuta can truly perceive about Fel is not his strength but his insatiable appetite. Makuta craves rice, so he prepares some for himself, but Fel insists on tasting it. He keeps saying, "Let me taste it." The moment he does, fireworks explode in his mind from how much he loves the rice. He says he never once thought that these grains could be eaten and taste this good, and so Makuta's long day comes to an end. He has accomplished his goal of entering the kingdom of Venin and registering with the Merchant Guild. He is about to sleep, but then gets up, deciding to prepare the goods he wants to sell first. Makuta opens his online shop. The next day, he returns to the receptionist at the Merchant Guild and presents his goods. We don't know what they are yet, but the moment she sees them, she becomes extremely serious and quickly takes him to the guild master's office. Makuta has no idea what is going on. There, the guild master inspects the goods, and it turns out they are salt and black pepper. Spices in this world are incredibly expensive, like treasure. The guild master asks where Makuta got them, but of course, Makuta doesn't tell him he bought them online. Instead, he lies and says he purchased them during his travels. Suddenly, the guild master offers 14 gold coins. Makuta is shocked, especially since he bought them for only 10 coppers. Makuta is so stunned that he stays completely silent. The guild master thinks this means the price isn't good enough, so he increases it and says, "How about 15 gold coins?" Makuta is even more shocked. The guild master raises the price again, saying 16 gold coins. Makuta remains speechless, so the guild master raises it once more to 17 gold coins, and pleads with Makuta to accept since he can't pay any more than that. Makuta finally snaps out of his shock and accepts, realizing he just turned 10 copper coins into 17 gold. After that, Makuta heads to the Adventurer Guild to register as an adventurer. When he signs up, the receptionist tells him that his rank is G, the lowest rank. That means he can only take G and F rank quests. She explains that the Adventurer Guild has 7 ranks, with S being the highest and G the lowest. Since he is G rank, he can only take 1 quest per month. She also clarifies that the guild is not responsible for anything that happens to him while working. Makuta goes to the job board looking for a G rank quest. He finds only one, gathering medicinal herbs. He decides to start that quest tomorrow. Then, out of nowhere, Fel appears and makes his usual request, food, especially meat. Makuta wakes up the next day full of energy and excitement to begin his first job as an adventurer and gather medicinal herbs. Likewise, Fel wakes up full of energy, but his one and only goal is food. He keeps pestering Makuta, saying he wants breakfast. They eat, and then they set off for Makuta to gather herbs. However, Fel is upset and tells Makuta that he is still hungry from breakfast. Makuta explains that his ingredients are running low, so they need to be more economical. Makuta then suggests that Fel go hunt monsters for food while he does his job and searches for medicinal herbs. Fel likes the idea but is worried. He tells Makuta that he can sense many monsters in this area and that he cannot leave him alone without protection. So, Fel places a magical barrier around Makuta to protect him. Makuta is deeply touched and amazed by Fel. Then, Fel sets off to hunt, telling Makuta to prepare food by the time he returns, making Makuta see him once again as a big eater. The area Makuta needs to search is vast, so he thinks of using his appraisal skill to identify the herbs. The moment he does, he easily finds the medicinal herbs he needs and gathers a huge amount, completing a task meant to take a month in a very short time. He decides to start preparing lunch before Fel returns. Since he has no meat left, he makes a dish from his own world, pasta with tomato sauce and minced meat, carefully cooking it to perfection. After a while, Fel returns with another rock bird, saying he really liked its taste when Makuta cooked it before and wanted to eat it again. He also says that he hunted quite a few monsters but couldn't carry them all back. Makuta tells him to eat first, and then Then they will go store the monsters in Makota's item box. Fel sniffs the food first before eating and finds it strange. Makota tells him it's a dish from his world and that it tastes good. Fel starts eating and loves it, saying it is soft, easy to swallow, and delicious, even though it doesn't contain much meat. Then Makota surprises him with another ingredient. He sprinkles some grated cheese on top. At that moment, Fel cannot contain himself from how delicious the food is. Makota drifts into his thoughts, realizing that even though he doesn't know if he can return to his original world, at least he can still eat the food he is used to. He tells himself that he is happy and lucky and that this world isn't bad at all. After that, Makota and Fel go to collect the monsters Fel hunted. Makota is shocked by how many there are. He starts storing them in his item box and tells Fel they should head to the Adventurer Guild to find someone who can butcher the monsters, extract the meat, and sell the valuable parts. Since Fel is very hungry and eager to eat meat, he lets Makota ride on his back and dashes at an incredible speed toward the guild. By the time they arrive, Makota is exhausted from the high-speed ride. Fel tells him he is weak, but Makota replies, "Be careful. If I die, there won't be any more food from my world." Makota enters the Adventurer Guild to hand in the herbs and receive payment for his work. The receptionist is surprised that he managed to gather the herbs so quickly, especially since his rank is low. She hands him 9 silver coins and 3 copper coins as a reward for the quest. However, Makota tells her that he has monsters with him. She is surprised, so he explains that he didn't hunt them himself. It was his contracted creature that did. The receptionist looks at Fel and is captivated by his beautiful appearance. She then directs Makota to the staff member in charge of purchasing monsters. Makota starts taking out the monsters from his bag, and the staff member is stunned by their number. He tells Makota that they cannot receive such a large amount here and need to go to the warehouse. At the warehouse, Makota pulls out an even larger quantity of monsters than the staff member had imagined. The staff member is further shocked to see that most of these monsters are B and A rank. However, all Makota cares about is whether these monsters are good for eating. The staff member responds that their meat is of the highest quality. Makota feels reassured and tells the staff member that he wants the meat to be processed and that he will take all of it, while he plans to sell the other parts and the hides. The staff member tells him that this will be a huge amount of meat. Makota replies that he has to feed Fel. The staff member informs them that due to the large number of monsters, the processing will not be completed until the next day. At that time, he will pay him for the sold monster parts and deduct the processing fee. However, Makota asks him to process 1 monster immediately so he can feed Fel. The request is granted, and Makota takes the meat, wondering how to cook it since he has never seen this type before. Eventually, he creates an amazing seasoning using the ingredients in his item box. He reminds himself that although the ingredients never spoil in the box, he should still use them regularly. He fries the meat and tops it with cheese and the same sauce he used for the pasta. When Fel eats, he loves the meat. However, Makota is hesitant at first, as he has never eaten meat from an unknown creature before. Summoning his courage, he takes a bite and finds it absolutely delicious. The next day, Makota returns to the Adventurer Guild to collect the processed meat and his payment. The amount of meat is enormous, and the money is even more than he expected. The staff member hands Makota 202 gold coins after deducting the processing fee. Makota is shocked to have earned so much, prompting the staff member to ask, "Do you not know the market value of these monsters?" The staff member explains that Makota needs to understand the worth of monsters because otherwise he could easily be deceived. He then starts listing the prices of various parts extracted from the monsters: magic gems, beaks, hides, fangs, and feathers. He explains that all these materials are used in various crafts and industries. Finally, the staff member hands Makota magic stones, which are filled with magic and can only be found in A rank or higher monsters. Makota thanks him for explaining everything. The staff member then looks at Fel and asks Makota, "Is this really a legendary Fenrir? He's not just a giant wolf, right?" Makota is confused by the question. The staff member elaborates, saying that there are rumors. Some claim that Fel is definitely a Fenrir, while others believe he is merely a massive wolf. He then reveals that he is a former adventurer and can tell from Fel's behavior and presence that he is indeed the legendary Fenrir. Makota leaves the guild, realizing that he has gathered valuable information, especially about Fel. He decides that if anyone asks, he will simply say that Fel is a giant wolf, not a Fenrir. That way, he can avoid attracting unnecessary attention. He also determines that they need to leave as soon as possible. Having earned far more money than expected and secured his guild cards, he tells Fel that they should leave the town quickly. But as always, all Fel cares about is food, especially meat. He tells Makota to hurry and prepare a meal because seeing the meat at the butcher's shop made him hungry. They continue walking to leave the town and eventually reach an abandoned area. Mukuda, feeling exhausted, decides they should spend the night there. As he prepares dinner, he initially reaches for some of the meat but then stops. Since Fel helped him earn a lot of money today, he decides to cook him something special from his world. However, Fel is starving, so Mukuda orders ready-made food from his world for him to eat while he cooks the main dish. Fel is absolutely delighted with the meal, and of course, he expects the main dish to consist of massive amounts of meat. But when Mukuda presents it, Fel is surprised to find just a single slice of meat. Disappointed, he complains, but Mukuda tells him to taste it first before judging, emphasizing that it is expensive and cannot be compared to monster meat. The moment Fel takes a bite, he is overwhelmed by its taste, saying that he has never eaten meat this delicious in his entire life. Mukuda explains that in his world, livestock is raised in a specific way to enhance the flavor of the meat. Fel remarks that people in Mukuda's world must be very serious about food. Mukuda agrees, saying that people there focus on flavors and constantly try new dishes. After eating to their heart's content, Fel tells Mukuda that whenever he eats, he feels a surge of energy, making him much stronger. However, today, he feels an even greater surge, as if he could defeat a dragon with ease. Mukuda asks Fel for permission to use appraisal on him. When he does, he is shocked to find that all of Fel's stats have increased by 50%. Fel feels an urge to go hunting since he has so much energy. Mukuda protests, saying that if Fel leaves, what if a monster attacks him? But before he can finish, Fel casts a protective barrier over him and then dashes off to hunt. Mukuda tells himself that Fel probably won't be back anytime soon, so he prepares his bed and goes to sleep. Even his bed is a Japanese-style one that he bought online. Fel goes hunting, and to say that no monster stands a chance against him would be an understatement. He is faster, his magic is far more potent, and no creature can withstand him. He hunts a tremendous amount. The next morning, Mukuda wakes up to find mountains of monsters Fel has caught. Fel justifies it by saying that he felt an overwhelming surge of energy, which led him to go a little overboard with hunting. He also adds that he used to struggle against a chimera before, but last night, he defeated one with a single strike. Mukuda realizes one thing: he should remove high-quality meat from Fel's diet forever. The next day, Mukuda cooks a legendary serpent for Fel. Fel says he never imagined its meat would taste this good. Mukuda explains that he made the skin crispy and added soy sauce and lemon, which completely transformed the flavor. Mukuda then asks Fel if he uses magic when hunting. Fel replies that he can hunt with his claws and fangs, but he prefers using magic because it's faster and takes down monsters in a single strike. Fel also says that the type of magic he excels at is wind magic because the goddess of wind granted him this ability herself. Mukuda asks Fel how to use magic, but Fel tells him that he first needs to check if he even has magic power. Mukuda opens his status and discovers that he does have magic, but only a small amount. He then asks Fel how to release his magic. Fel responds, saying that if he thinks about fire magic, fire will come out, and if he thinks about wind magic, wind will come out. Simple as that. Mukuda is completely confused and thinks that Fel must be a genius who can cast magic effortlessly because he is naturally gifted. Feeling embarrassed for even asking, Mukuda tries to follow Fel's instructions. He concentrates on the magic he wants to release, imagines it clearly, and then, boom, nothing happens. Mukuda fails miserably. Fel gives him a meaningful look and asks, "What kind of nonsense are you doing?" Mukuda is extremely embarrassed. Fel then tells him that he won't be able to use magic unless he lets it flow through his body first. However, Mukuda still doesn't understand what that means. Fel says he can't explain it with words, so he tells Mukuda to touch his body. When Mukuda does, Fel starts channeling magic. Mukuda feels Fel's body become warm and finally understands how to circulate magic through his own body. He successfully produces fire magic, but it is extremely weak. Fel tells him that his training is too soft, which is why his skills aren't improving. He says Mukuda needs to undergo real training and gain some experience. Mukuda responds that he has never been in a fight or even held a sword, so there's no way he can defeat any monster. Fel tells him that he won't know unless he tries. Mukuda says he doesn't want to get hurt. Fel replies that it's necessary to become strong. Mukuda, refusing, says that if he gets injured, it will hurt and he's not the type to endure pain. Angered, Fel grabs Mukuda by the scruff of his neck and drags him off for real training against his will. Fel takes Mukuda to an area where a group of creatures called goblins has gathered. These monsters are weak. Fel keeps telling Mukuda to cast fire magic at them, but Mukuda is too scared to comply. Fel keeps urging him, but Mukuda hesitates until Fel finally says, "If you don't attack them now, I'll take care of it myself." Mukuda remains cowardly until the last moment, making excuses that there are too many of them and he can't handle them all. So, Fel lets out a loud noise, drawing the goblins' attention. When they see Mukuda and Fel, they charge at them. Fel keeps shouting for Mukuta to cast the spell and leaves him alone to go hunt the goblin leader. Mukuta curses Fel for abandoning him and realizes he has no choice but to face his fear and launch the attack. Thankfully, his spell works. Just as he begins to celebrate his success, bam! He stumbles and falls flat on his face. The goblins attack him, but Fel's protective barrier prevents them from causing any harm. This boosts Mukuta's confidence, and he starts casting fire magic repeatedly until he wipes them out. His final spell is stronger than any of his previous fire magic. Thinking it's over, Mukuta lets his guard down, only for more goblins to appear and charge at him. He faints from exhaustion, having depleted all his magic. At that moment, Fel returns, saves him from the goblins, and takes him back to their camp. When Mukuta wakes up, it is nighttime. He wakes up screaming, haunted by nightmares of goblins. He finds Fel sitting under the moonlight, who asks, "So, how was your first battle?" Fel looks at him proudly and says, "I'm sure it was a valuable experience for you." Mukuta, irritated, snaps at Fel, saying it was a terrible experience and that he'll be having nightmares about it. Fel, however, lifts Mukuta's spirits by telling him that his last spell was excellent. Then, Fel starts puffing up his chest in pride and says, "You can use magic now thanks to me." Mukuta realizes that Fel just wants to praise himself for his great achievement. Mukuta then looks away shyly and mutters that beginners usually start by fighting one or two monsters, not by being thrown into a goblin colony. Fel retorts that it's Mukuta's own weakness and slow progress that made it necessary. Fel then looks closely at Mukuta and tells him that his level has increased. Mukuta checks his status and finds that his level has gone up and he has acquired the fireball skill. Suddenly, Fel takes out the corpse of the goblin leader he hunted and shows it to Mukuta. He explains that if it contains a magic gem, it will sell for a high price. Since they can sell it for a lot of money, Fel suggests that means they can afford some high-quality meat from Mukuta's world again. Mukuta yells at Fel, saying they already have plenty of meat and that they won't be eating premium Japanese beef anytime soon or ever again. Fel gives up and just says, "Fine, then just cook me anything." But Mukuta is still exhausted, so he uses his skill to shop online and buys some pastries and sweets for them to eat. Fel enjoys the sweets a lot, and Mukuta comments that sugar is the best way to recover energy when someone is exhausted. Fel eats a large amount, prompting Mukuta to warn him about tooth decay. Fel simply responds that he is immune to diseases because the goddess of wind blessed him with an enhancement that strengthens his body. Mukuta mutters that he wishes he had a blessing like that too. The next day, Fel and Mukuta arrive in a new city where everyone is terrified of Fel. The soldiers point their weapons at him, but Mukuta calms them down and explains that Fel is his contracted beast. He lies, saying that Fel is a giant wolf. Fel then speaks to Mukuta through telepathy, insisting, "I am a Fenrir, not a giant wolf." Mukuta replies via telepathy, "Be quiet." He then asks Fel how they are able to communicate this way. Fel explains that their contract allows them to do so. The soldier permits them to enter under the condition that Mukuta takes full responsibility if Fel causes any harm. They enter the city, and Mukuta starts looking for a bookstore to buy a map, telling Fel that they need it to travel efficiently. They go to the bookstore, where Mukuta finds a magic book for sale. It is very expensive, so he asks the shopkeeper why it costs so much. The shopkeeper explains that paper is rare and expensive. Mukuta then asks about a map, but the shopkeeper tells him that maps are restricted. Mukuta spends the entire day trying to obtain a map or find any information on where to get one, but he fails miserably. He returns to the place where he left Fel, who is waiting for him, feeling hungry and irritated. Mukuta offers him a meal from his world, which Fel enjoys so much that he forgives Mukuta for leaving him. After that, Mukuta starts eating, but Fel, ever the glutton, stares at his food and asks for more. The next day, Mukuta knows that the best place to gather information is the tavern, so he goes there. He enters and flaunts his money, choosing a table with adventurers and ordering drinks for them at his expense. Since he's paying, they welcome him and let him sit with them. He tells them that he wants to ask some questions because he is a traveling merchant in need of help. He explains that he came from the kingdom of Recap and recently arrived in the kingdom of Venin, so he knows nothing about this place. They tell him it's good that he left the kingdom of Recap because it has been causing a lot of trouble with neighboring kingdoms by trying to expand its settlements, which has led to wars. They also tell him that the kingdoms of Armin and Leonhardt in the east are currently the most politically stable and secure. Additionally, both kingdoms have many dungeons, which is why adventurers love them. Mukuta tells them that he needs a map since he will be traveling alone. The adventurers are surprised that he doesn't have one. He explains that he tried many times to get one but failed. He says that his dreams are simple. He just wants a basic map to give him a general idea of the kingdoms. At that moment, the three adventurers exchange strange looks among themselves. Then, in a low voice, they tell Mukuta that they have a map. One of them explains that they received it as a special gift from an old adventurer. They say they don't mind giving it to him since they have already memorized it. They also tell him that the map is rare, made of paper, and that they will sell it to him at a very cheap price. They offer to sell it for 1 gold coin, warning him that if he passes up this opportunity, he will regret it because he won't find another like it. Makuta thinks for a moment and then decides to buy the map. The adventurers tell him to take care on his journeys and leave. Shortly after, Makuta starts feeling like everyone in the tavern is laughing at him. Innocently, he walks over and asks if he did something funny. One of the men asks, "Did you buy the map from them?" Makuta replies, "Yes." The man pulls out a map from his pocket and asks, "Like this one?" Makuta is surprised that the man has the same map. The man then tells him, "For your information, you can buy that same map from the Adventurer Guild for just 1 silver coin." Everyone bursts into laughter, and Makuta realizes that he has been scammed. With that, Makuta and Fel set off toward the east. Makuta is excited to explore the world. Fel and Makuta are sitting and eating when the goddess of wind watches them from afar, feeling displeased that her servant, Fel, now has a master, and not just any master, but a human with no magical power. Later, Fel makes Makuta ride on his back, and they speed through the forest at an incredible pace. Makuta, terrified, keeps screaming the entire way. Suddenly, Fel stops abruptly, sending Makuta flying. Fel looks at him, confused as to why he's in such a state, bruised, scratched, and disheveled. Makuta yells at him, saying that because His Highness was running so fast through the forest, he got injured by the trees. Makuta looks around and spots water, exclaiming, "Wait, did we reach the sea this fast?" But Fel corrects him, saying they haven't reached the sea, it's just a lake. He brought Makuta here because he wants to eat fish. Makuta points out that they don't have a fishing rod or anything to catch fish with, so how are they supposed to eat fish? Fel stands still for a moment, then casts magic, and suddenly, all kinds of fish float to the surface of the lake. He tells Makuta to pick whatever he wants and leave the rest. Makuta asks if the fish are dead, but Fel responds that he only knocked them unconscious. They'll recover soon. Makuta starts selecting the fish he needs. He spots a large one and decides it will be for Fel. However, Fel points to another colorful fish, saying that it has a sharp but delicious taste. Makuta, suspicious, worries it might be poisonous, so he uses appraisal on it. Sure enough, it's a poisonous fish. He immediately throws it away and tells Fel that the sharp taste is due to the poison. Fel isn't affected because he is blessed and immune to diseases and toxins, but if Makuta eats it, he will definitely be poisoned. Makuta refuses to cook it under any circumstances. Next, Makuta starts a fire and shops online for the ingredients he needs to cook the fish. As he does this, Fel sits beside him, nagging him to buy meat instead. Makuta ignores him completely. Makuta cleans the fish, feeling grateful for all the cooking shows he watched in his world. He prepares 3 different fish dishes, each with a unique flavor. All of them turn out delicious, and Fel is especially thrilled with the food. As usual, the ever-greedy Fel asks for more. Just as Makuta is about to get more food, he accidentally bumps into a small creature. The creature is soft and jelly-like. Fel explains that it's a weak monster called a slime. Any slime of this size is harmless. It's nothing more than prey. Makuta finds the slime adorable and uses appraisal on it. He discovers that it's incredibly weak at level 1 and only 3 days old. The slime is hungry. Makuta thinks about what he could feed it, but since he and Fel have already eaten all their food, there's nothing left. Suddenly, the slime moves toward an empty water bottle and eats it. Fel then explains that slimes eat anything and everything, even rocks. The slime starts eating all the trash they've left behind, even moving toward the plates and pots. Makuta quickly rescues them at the last second and tells the slime that those are off limits. After the slime finishes eating all the trash, Makuta praises it, saying, "You're amazing." The slime is overjoyed by the compliment and starts bouncing excitedly. Then, out of nowhere, the little creature jumps onto Makuta's chest. Makuta gently pats it. Fel then informs Makuta that the creature is now his familiar. It made a contract with him. Makuta is shocked, saying he didn't make any contract. Fel explains that because Makuta patted the slime, it accepted him as its master. Fel tells him to check his status, and sure enough, Makuta sees that he now has 2 familiars. Fel suggests that Makuta name the creature immediately, so Makuta names it Sway. Makuta spends some time training his earth magic, casting stone-based spells, but they are extremely weak and barely cause any damage. Fel tells him he's incredibly weak and lacks skill. Makuta retorts that he doesn't want to hear that from a genius and says that, finally, he has found a type of magic that suits him better than fire. Fel suggests that Makuta train the same way he did with fire magic, through practical combat. Since that method helped him improve significantly, it should work for earth magic too. Makuta recalls the terrifying experience of fighting the goblins and screams at Fel, saying that he absolutely refuses refuses to go through that again. But Fel responds that at this rate, Makuta will never improve in earth magic. Makuta then notices that Sui has grown noticeably larger. He uses appraisal and realizes that Sui's level has jumped from 1 to 8. Makuta concludes that consuming items from his world, whether food or objects, boosts the levels of creatures in this world. Since Sui has been eating all of Makuta's trash, which accumulated in his item box, that must be the reason its level skyrocketed. Fel tells Makuta that he's starving and wants to eat meat today. Makuta says he'll cook something delicious for both Sui and Fel. Makuta prepares orc meat, a monster from this new world. However, this time, he lets it marinate overnight in miso sauce, making the flavor much richer. As expected, Fel and Sui ask for seconds. Makuta notes to himself that he has now fully adapted to eating monster meat without any hesitation, and that he's finally getting used to this world. After eating, Makuta checks Sui's status again and notices that, while Sui gains some enhancements, its level hasn't increased further. He realizes that Sui only levels up by consuming items. However, Sui proves to be very useful. Not only does it eat their waste, but it also cleans their dishes thoroughly. Makuta is delighted because this means he can save soap and water. He happily declares that Sui is truly amazing and helpful, unlike a certain someone whose only concern is eating. Since this is Sui's first meal with them, Makuta decides to celebrate. He buys sweets from the internet and shares them with Fel and Sui. As always, Fel is thrilled. Meanwhile, it's Sui's first time tasting sweets, and it is completely mesmerized by the flavor. The next day, Fel appears unusually serious about something. He tells Makuta to wake up and focus because there are important matters to discuss. Makuta gets up and asks Fel why he's being so serious, jokingly asking, "Don't tell me your stomach hurts?" Fel replies that such a thing is impossible for him. He then begins to explain that last night he received a message from Ninrir, the goddess of wind. Makuta asks if Ninrir is the one who enhanced Fel's abilities and granted him her blessing. Fel confirms this and then says, "Didn't you also want her to enhance your strength? Well, congratulations. She heard you and decided to grant you an enhancement as well. But there's one condition. You must offer her a gift once a week, and that gift must be sweets from your world." Makuta is baffled and asks why she would request sweets from another world. Fel ignores his question and continues, explaining that it's difficult for the goddess of wind to fully enhance Makuta's strength like she did for him, so she will grant him a secondary blessing instead. Fel explains that this secondary blessing will make Makuta immune to diseases and ailments, except for instant death effects and powerful curses. Additionally, the enhancement will allow Makuta to use magic more effectively. However, this all depends on him never forgetting to present his offering to Ninrir once a week. Makuta is convinced that the only reason Ninrir is doing all of this is because she wants sweets from his world. However, he pretends to be respectful and says, of course, he will provide the sweets on time. Fel adds one last thing. Ninrir specifically requested custard-filled bread, melon bread, and anpan. Makuta is a bit surprised and thinks to himself, just as I expected, she only cares about eating sweets. Makuta sends the offering to Ninrir, and at that very moment, she grants him her blessing in return. The scene shifts to Ninrir, who is overjoyed with the sweets. She had been craving them for so long that she even dreamt about them. She starts eating and is completely blown away by how delicious they are. When she takes a sip of coffee, she is shocked. It's bitter but also perfectly balanced in flavor. She tries to save some sweets for the rest of the week until the next offering, but she ultimately fails to control herself and eats everything. Back to Makuta, he realizes that his strength and magic have indeed improved. His earth magic spells are now much stronger than before. He gives credit to Ninrir for the enhancement. Sui stands beside him, cheering him on. Makuta looks at Sui and tells him that he has also leveled up, now reaching level 13. Makuta then says that he, too, needs to keep training to improve and continues practicing until he completely exhausts his energy. To recover, he shops online for chocolate and an energy drink. He gives Sui a piece of chocolate, but then he notices that Fel has been gone for a while. Makuta wonders what's on his mind. At that moment, Fel returns, sniffs the air, and asks, "Did you eat something without me?" Makuta tells him that he was completely drained from practicing magic, so he ate something called chocolate. Fel, the legendary beast that could destroy an entire town with minimal effort, responds, "I ran a lot today, so I'm exhausted too. I need some chocolate." Makuta gives Fel some chocolate, and Fel is absolutely delighted as he eats it. Then, Ninrir suddenly speaks in Makuta's ear in a calm, dignified voice, requesting that he send her an offering with chocolate. Immediately after, she starts shouting like an excited child, "Ah, and send me some dorayaki too." Makuta tells her that it hasn't even been a week since the last offering, so he can't send another one yet. He then asks her what she did with all the sweets he sent last time. She casually replies, "I finished them all." Makuta sighs but still sends her another offering. After that, Fel starts nagging Mukuta to take him somewhere. Fel dashes through the forest with Mukuta on his back. As they run, Fel asks, "So, how's your earth magic doing now?" Mukuta replies that he can still only launch one stone at a time, but its power and speed have improved significantly. Fel thinks to himself, then it's time to take Mukuta there. Mukuta, completely clueless, wonders where there is and what Fel is planning. Mukuta and Fel stand in front of a cave, and Mukuta asks, "What are we doing in front of this cave?" Fel replies, "This isn't just any ordinary cave. This is a Demas." Mukuta, feeling scared, asks, "Why are we here then?" Fel explains that these places appear in areas with high mana concentration. Mukuta repeats the question, "Why am I here?" Fel tells him that he's here to gain practical experience. His fire magic only improved after real combat experience, so now they'll do the same for his earth magic. Mukuta wants to run away, but Fel grabs him by the collar and throws him inside the cave. Mukuta panics, screaming that he won't be able to handle the Demas. Fel reassures him, saying he already scouted this Demas before bringing him here, and all the creatures inside are weak. Still frightened, Mukuta protests, "They're weak compared to you, but not to me." However, Fel remains firm, telling Mukuta that his training method isn't yielding results, so he has to step in. Fel assures Mukuta not to be afraid, as he will cast a protective barrier on him. But he warns, "What if one day I disappear? The barrier won't always be there. You must be able to protect yourself." Mukuta reluctantly accepts that Fel is right, but he says he'll use his shopping skill. Mukuta then prepares a feast filled with all sorts of delicious food. Fel asks if he wants to eat before starting the fight. Mukuta explains that food from his world temporarily boosts his stats, so he plans to eat before entering the battle. Mukuta also mentions that he doesn't know exactly which types of food will enhance the skills he needs, so he eats a variety. As he eats, he talks with Fel about how this food had no special effects in his original world. Mukuta keeps eating until he is full. He checks his skills and finds that they have increased by 20%. He also notices that both Sway's and Fel's stats have improved. Fel then tells him it's time to enter the Demas. Mukuta grabs a sword and tells Fel to lower the protective barrier. The three of them step into the cave, with Fel pushing Mukuta to move faster. Suddenly, a slime, just like Sway, appears before him. Mukuta hesitates, thinking it will be difficult to eliminate a slime similar to Sway, but Sway swiftly takes it down. Fel praises Sway and comments that he might be different from other slimes. Two more slimes attack them. Fel tells Mukuta that it's his turn to handle them. Mukuta casts an earth magic spell, successfully defeating them. The slimes evaporate, confusing Mukuta. Fel explains that the Demas absorbs everything that dies inside it, whether humans or monsters. As they move forward, Fel warns Mukuta about horned rabbits, advising him to be especially cautious of their horns. Soon, the rabbits attack, and Mukuta panics, wildly swinging his sword. Fel scolds him, telling him to use his earth magic instead, since that's what they came to practice. Later, goblins attack, and Mukuta instinctively uses fire magic. Fel reminds him to use earth magic, but Mukuta admits that when he's in danger, he automatically resorts to the spell he's most skilled at. Mukuta then asks Fel, "When I used to walk with you in the forest, the monsters would hide from you. Why are they attacking me now?" Fel explains that in the Demas, all creatures see anyone who enters as an enemy, whether strong or weak. As they descend deeper, Fel tells Mukuta that he will now face kobolds. Just as Mukuta asks what they are, a pack of them start chasing him. Fel tells him not to run since his speed won't help against them. Mukuta turns and casts an earth spell on them, which fortunately succeeds. He becomes excited about managing to use the spell. Fel remarks that practical experience is the best form of training. Mukuta, thrilled, asks Fel, "Wasn't my spell impressive?" Fel bluntly responds that it wasn't very good and that he shouldn't be proud of the nonsense he just pulled off. Fel tells Mukuta that he needs more training. Mukuta gets motivated and they descend another level in the cave. Fel warns him that this level contains more kobolds, about 10 of them. Encouraged, Mukuta goes down. However, as soon as he arrives and looks at the kobolds, he realizes that they aren't just 10, they are an entire tribe. Mukuta attempts to flee, but Fel grabs him by the collar and pulls him back. Mukuta insists he can't handle such a large number. Fel advises Mukuta to let Sway fight alongside him and not to be so scared, especially since the protective spell is still active. He assures Mukuta that he'll step in if anything goes wrong. Sway, the small and adorable slime, is eager to fight, surprising Mukuta. Fel tells him that Sway is much braver than he is. Then, Fel literally throws Mukuta toward the kobolds. They attack, but Fel's protective spell shields him. Sway jumps into battle, performing exceptionally well. Mukuta gains confidence and starts casting earth magic like crazy, wiping out many of them. Just as Mukuta takes a moment to rest, a much larger and stronger creature creature appears before him. Terrified, Makuta asks Fel, "What is that?" Fel answers, "That's the Cobalt King. I expected him to be here since there was a pack. He came out now because you killed so many of his subordinates." The Cobalt King charges at Makuta, who tries to run. Fel warns him that running will get him killed. Makuta gathers his courage and casts an earth spell, but it has no real effect. Fel informs him that if the Cobalt King lands a hit on him, the protective spell will break. Makuta panics and desperately continues attacking until he finally manages to land a stronger earth spell that injures the Cobalt King. He prepares to attack again, but he runs out of magic power. The Cobalt King strikes, but Fel's barrier protects Makuta. Makuta realizes Fel lied about the barrier breaking just to push him into fighting. Sui then bravely counterattacks and kills the Cobalt King. Makuta faints. Later, they carry him out of the cave, where Sui tries to wake him up. Sui, worried, speaks for the first time, saying he is happy that Makuta is okay. Makuta suddenly realizes that Sui is talking. Sui explains that after defeating the Cobalt King, he gained the ability to speak. Makuta is overjoyed, thinking that Sui has become even more adorable. Makuta then checks Sui's stats and sees that his level has increased, and he has gained new abilities like acid bullets. Looking at his own stats, Makuta finds that he has leveled up 4 times and gained earth magic as a skill. However, his overall stats are still worse than Sui's, which makes him feel slightly discouraged. Sui worries that Makuta is upset because his level increased. However, Makuta reassures him that he's actually very happy for him. Makuta then asks about Fel, saying they will understand everything once he returns. When Fel finally comes back, his face is covered in blood. Makuta asks what happened, and Fel explains that he was just sleeping but got hungry, so he hunted a monster for food. He then adds, "But your food tastes way better." Fel then asks Makuta to prepare a feast, especially since Makuta managed to use earth magic because of him. Makuta remembers that Fel lied about the barrier breaking and confronts him. Fel responds, "So what? Wasn't I just encouraging you?" Makuta is still annoyed by Fel's lie, but he decides to cook for him anyway. Since Fel lost a lot of energy fighting the kobolds, Makuta prepares something nutritious, rock bird meat and eggs, putting great effort into his cooking as always. As usual, Sui and Fel want more food. After eating, Makuta asks if Fel has spoken with Sui. Sui happily replies that he talked a lot with Uncle Fel. Makuta laughs, while Fel gets irritated, telling Sui not to call him that. Makuta teases him further, saying, "Sui calls me master, not uncle." Fel yells again, making Sui scared and cry. Makuta quickly comforts Sui, soothing him until Fel finally allows Sui to call him Uncle Fel. Fel, Makuta, and Sui set off, and Fel tells Makuta that the forest is divided. Half is under the control of the Orthros, and the other half belongs to the Griffin. That's why humans avoid the forest, as it's dangerous. But Fel keeps running with Makuta on his back through the forest. Makuta gets terrified and says, "Aren't these monsters incredibly strong with a high level?" Fel replies, "That's correct." Makuta then asks, "So why are we passing through their territory?" Fel answers that they pose no threat to him, and even they know they can't challenge him. Fel adds that only the young, brave ones among them are foolish enough to confront him. Then Makuta asks the dumbest question possible, "Are there many of them?" Fel responds, "Of course they multiply. What do you think?" Suddenly, 3 Orthros monsters appear in front of them. Fel tells Makuta to take Sui and hide somewhere while he deals with them. Makuta doesn't hesitate and runs away. Meanwhile, Fel says to the monsters, "Do you even understand what it means to fight me?" He casts magic on them and defeats them in a split second, ending the battle effortlessly. Makuta is shocked by Fel's strength, and Sui keeps saying that Uncle Fel is really strong. Makuta approaches Fel and asks if the way he instantly defeated the monsters was a magic skill. Fel, full of himself, says it's a skill called Rending Claws. He explains that he infuses his claws with magic and then lands a decisive blow that shreds his enemies. Makuta notices that Fel is slightly arrogant. Sui asks Makuta if he can do that too. Makuta tells him that he doesn't have claws, but his acid bullets are an incredibly powerful skill. Makuta keeps praising and doting on Sui, which slightly irritates Fel. Makuta remains very nervous throughout their time in the forest. Fel notices and asks him why he's so tense. Makuta says it's only natural to be scared after the Orthros attacked them. Fel reassures him, saying they aren't foolish enough to attack again. Fel then asks Makuta if he has prepared the food. Makuta is still scared and asks if the protective barrier is still on him. But as soon as Sui says he's hungry, Makuta forgets everything and rushes to comfort and pamper Sui. Meanwhile, Fel, the ever-hungry one, starts feeling like there's a difference in how Makuta treats him compared to Sui. He tells Makuta that his behavior towards Sui is different from how he treats treats him. Mukuta then asks Fel how much longer until they leave the forest. Fel replies that they have crossed half of it in 3 weeks. Mukuta calculates that they have another 3 weeks left on this journey. He checks his remaining meat supply and finds that it will barely last the 3 of them for another 3 weeks. Mukuta decides to cook snake meat, seasoning it with chicken spices. He puts great effort into preparing the dish. Fel and Sui enjoy the food so much that they ask for seconds. They love it so much that they even distract Mukuta and steal some of his share. Then they resume their journey, with Mukuta riding on Fel's back. As Fel is running, he suddenly stops. Mukuta asks him why. Fel explains that he has found a rare mushroom called the healing mushroom. He says it's named that way because it can heal anyone who eats it. He also mentions that it's used as a medical ingredient, but anyone can eat it normally, and it can heal deep wounds and broken bones. Mukuta looks around and sees a lot of them. He decides to pick some and keep them since they're valuable. Meanwhile, Sui starts eating them. Mukuta continues collecting more. Suddenly, Sui begins glowing. Mukuta gets worried and asks if he's okay, but Sui is unsure. Mukuta keeps checking on him to see if anything is wrong, but Sui insists he's fine and jumps around happily. To make sure, Mukuta uses his appraisal skill on Sui. He notices that Sui has gained a new skill called Healing Potion Creation. Mukuta asks Fel about this skill. Fel suggests that it might have developed because Sui ate a large amount of healing mushrooms. He recalls that a long time ago, he saw a slime turn into metal after eating too much metal and gaining a related skill. Mukuta deduces that slimes evolve based on what they consume. He tells himself that this new skill isn't bad and will be useful. He praises Sui even more and encourages him to try using his new skill. Sui tries his hardest for Mukuta. Mukuta tells Sui not to push himself too much if he's struggling. But Sui keeps going and successfully produces a magical healing liquid, which Mukuta bottles. He sniffs it but finds it odorless. Then, he uses his appraisal skill and discovers that it's a high-quality healing potion capable of saving anyone on the brink of death. Mukuta asks Fel if he has ever seen anything like this before, but Fel says it's his first time encountering it. Mukuta then asks Sui what high quality means. Sui explains that the potion can cure all diseases and wounds. Mukuta asks Sui again if he can create different types of healing potions. Sui begins producing different kinds, one for major wounds and another for minor ones. Fel is amazed and says that he has lived for a very long time, but this is the first time he has ever seen a slime capable of making healing potions. He also remarks that Sui is very intelligent for a slime and is truly unique among his kind. After that, the 3 enter the griffin territory, where they encounter a griffin. They assume it will attack them like the Orthros did, and Fel gets ready, telling Mukuta to stay calm in battle. However, the griffin bows to Fel and speaks to him very respectfully, saying he has a request. Fel tells Mukuta that since the griffin can speak human language, it means he is highly intelligent. The griffin confirms this, saying that his request is for Fel to fight him so that he can become the leader. He explains that if he fights a powerful Fenrir like Fel, everyone will recognize his strength and acknowledge him as the leader. Mukuta thinks to himself, so he just wants to fight a strong Fenrir to prove he deserves to lead the pack? The griffin bows again and earnestly pleads with Fel to accept his request. Fel agrees and tells the griffin that he won't hold back in battle. Fel then says, "It looks like you're ready to throw your life away," but Mukuta tells Fel not to kill the griffin. The fight begins, and the griffin proves to be strong, shooting his feathers like bullets and creating a huge dust cloud to obscure Fel's vision before launching an attack. However, Fel conjures a tornado, trapping the griffin inside and practically turning him into shredded meat. Mukuta gets upset and says, "I told you not to kill him," but Fel replies that he had warned him from the start that he wouldn't go easy on him. However, Mukuta thinks that what Fel did to the griffin was excessive and rushes over to check on him. The griffin is in terrible shape, barely alive, and tells Mukuta that there's no problem with what Fel did. He says that he is honored that Fel took him seriously. Mukuta calls Sui and asks him to make a potion for major wounds. Sui prepares the healing liquid and pours it on the griffin, and his wounds begin to heal. The griffin regains consciousness and calls himself a failure, saying he wasn't able to accomplish anything. Mukuta tells him that's not true and points to a small wound on Fel's body, saying that he managed to injure the legendary beast Fenrir. Mukuta keeps poking at Fel to make him admit it, and Fel, clearly irritated, finally acknowledges that the griffin did wound him. The griffin stands up and calls his entire pack, where he is officially accepted as the leader. He sincerely thanks Fel and gives Mukuta one of his feathers as a gift before leading his pack away. That night, Fel tells Mukuta that he used more power in his fight with the griffin than usual, so he wants extra meat with his meal. Mukuta scolds him, saying he already eats way too much meat every day. But Fel tells him that in return, they will pass through the griffin territory faster, since since he knows Mukuta is afraid. Mukuta prepares fried orc meat with sauce and serves it to Sway and Fel. As always, they love the food and ask for more. As always, Mukuta cooks for them again. Fel then asks Mukuta if he has been sending tribute food to the wind goddess Ninrir. Mukuta realizes he completely forgot. Fel yells at him to send the offering immediately. The next day, the three finally leave the forest. Mukuta remarks that their journey through the forest lasted a month and a half and was incredibly long. They head toward the kingdom of Leonhardt, and Mukuta notes that they are out of meat and need to visit the guild to check on their captured monsters. Fel is shocked and upset that they have run out of meat. He immediately speeds up to find a city. But along the way, Mukuta spots a caravan being attacked by bandits. He tells Fel to go save the caravan immediately, promising to cook him a luxurious dinner in return. Of course, the mention of food motivates Fel, and he rushes to help. The bandits are fiercely fighting the people in the caravan. Fel arrives, lets out a powerful roar, and threatens to tear them apart if they make a move. He orders them to drop their weapons. The caravan leader repeatedly thanks Mukuta and introduces himself as the leader of the adventurers escorting the caravan. He asks if Fel is Mukuta's contracted beast and then asks Mukuta where they are headed. The caravan leader explains that they are traveling to the city of Carolina, which is located in the kingdom of Leonhardt. Mukuta asks if they can accompany them there. The leader tells Mukuta that of course they can, and that they will feel much safer with them around. And so, Sway, Fel, and Mukuta travel to the city of Carolina with the caravan. Mukuta, Fel, and Sway travel with the caravan while the adventurers talk about Fel. Some rumors claim that he is the legendary beast Fenrir, while others say he is just a giant wolf. Mukuta overhears the conversation and is shocked at how quickly news about him and Fel has spread. He recalls that adventurer guilds transmit information instantly, and he becomes extremely worried about being discovered as someone from another world with an item box and an online shopping skill. He is also concerned about Fel, knowing that everyone would want to exploit him and use him for their battles. He hopes they don't get into any trouble, especially with the rulers of different countries. At night, while Mukuta is still anxious, Fel approaches from behind and reminds him not to forget his promise of a luxurious meal for saving the caravan. Since he did save them, it's now Mukuta's turn to prepare a fine meat dish. Fel and Mukuta move to a more secluded spot away from the caravan so Mukuta can cook for him. Mukuta asks Fel what he wants to eat, and Fel immediately answers, "Meat, of course." Mukuta grumbles about Fel's obsession with meat, and at that moment, Sway also says he wants meat. Mukuta, completely content, laughs and tells Sway he'll make him whatever he wants. However, all the meat they had is now gone, leaving only leftovers of different kinds. Mukuta gathers all the remaining meat and cooks it since they are close to reaching the city, and also because he promised Fel a fine meal. Mukuta prepares a delicious dish, and the smell fills the air. The scent drifts to the adventurers, who follow it until they find Mukuta cooking. Mukuta invites them to eat, and he keeps cooking for everyone multiple times until they are all full. However, Fel isn't satisfied yet and asks for more. Mukuta tells him that they're out of meat. The adventurers thank Mukuta profusely, saying they've never tasted food this delicious before. As a token of appreciation, they tell Mukuta and his companions to rest while they take care of guarding the captured bandits. But first, Fel scares them a little before they all go to sleep. The next day, they arrive at Carolina, the fifth largest city in the kingdom of Leonhardt. The adventurers head to the guild to hand over the captured bandits, and Mukuta and Fel go with them. At the adventurers guild, the receptionist tells Mukuta that his membership has been cancelled. He doesn't understand why it would be revoked, so she asks if he stopped taking quests for more than a month. She explains that the guild interprets a lack of quests as a sign that someone isn't interested in being an adventurer, so they cancel the membership. She adds that this mainly happened because of his rank. If he had been promoted, he could have gone up to 3 months without activity without being removed. Mukuta realizes that his only option is to re-register with the guild. The receptionist notices that he seems to have a new contracted beast and asks what type it is. Mukuta shows her Sway, and she looks at him with surprise and mild disgust, questioning why his contracted beast is a slime. Mukuta insists that his slime is different from any other, but everyone in the guild laughs at him. After that, Mukuta goes to sell the monsters Fel hunted. However, one of the adventurers from the caravan insists on watching, curious about what kind of creatures Fel is capable of catching. Mukuta agrees to let him see. Mukuta takes out all the monsters, and everyone is shocked by the number of high-ranked creatures. They conclude that Fel isn't just a giant wolf, he really is a Fenrir. Mukuta then asks the butcher processing the monsters if there are other places that properly preserve monster materials. But the butcher says the other places are of low quality and would only focus on extracting the meat, neglecting other valuable parts. The butcher comments that viper meat has an amazing flavor. Mukuta and Fel agree, saying they would love to eat some. The adventurers from the caravan overhear this and are stunned. One of them asks Mukuta what kind of meat he served them the previous night. Mukuta casually responds that it was a mix of viper, orc, rockbird, and other monster meats. Everyone starts apologizing in shock, realizing they had eaten such expensive ingredients. But Mukuta tells them there's no need to apologize since, as they can see, he has plenty of high-quality meat to last for months. The adventurers thank him and tell him that he and his companions are now well known in Carolina. They encourage him to find them if he ever needs help. They also assure him that he doesn't need to worry about anything since no one in the city would dare trouble him as long as they are his friends. They recommend an inn where he can stay for the night. Mukuta thinks to himself that he should take on guild quests so he can continue hunting monsters there, which is strange since he never actually wanted to be an adventurer in the first place. Just as he is about to sleep, he hears a voice reminding him that he still has things to do and that she had waited since he was busy. Mukuta suddenly remembers the wind goddess Ninrir and that he still needs to send her an offering of sweets. Mukuta wonders how Ninrir, the wind goddess, is only focused on eating sweets from his world. Feeling exhausted, he falls asleep. The next day, Mukuta goes to choose a quest. He finds options like collecting medicinal herbs for 2 points or hunting goblins for 3 points. Fel tells him to pick the goblin hunt since he can easily take them down. However, Mukuta insists on choosing the easier and safer mission. Fel keeps pressuring him, but Mukuta says that if he earns just 1 point per day, it will take him 3 months to get promoted. Fel communicates telepathically, urging Mukuta to hunt goblins since it will help him rank up quickly, allowing them to visit the ocean sooner. Mukuta refuses and says he has bad memories of goblins because of some legendary creature. Then he asks Fel why they need to go to the ocean so soon. Fel gives the predictable answer. They need to go because the sea has delicious creatures that Mukuta can cook for him, and he wants to go as soon as possible. Mukuta declares that he will never go to the ocean, but Fel shouts at him, saying that Mukuta is the reason he loves fish now, ever since he cooked for him at the lake. Fel then asks Sway if he wants to fight. Sway excitedly responds with a yes. Mukuta tells Sway that fighting is dangerous and that they should choose a safer task. But Sway insists that he wants to fight. Mukuta is too weak against Sway's cuteness, so he agrees and they go hunting goblins. When the three arrive at the forest, they spot 3 goblins. Mukuta is scared and hesitant to attack, even though Fel keeps encouraging him. But then, the little but deadly Sway charges in and wipes out all 3 goblins in a single strike. Mukuta is required to bring back their ears as proof of the hunt, so he cuts them off reluctantly. Fel teases him, saying he should be used to cutting meat by now. Mukuta yells at him, saying, "This is not the same thing." Fel looks at Mukuta and says that goblins have been drawn to his loud voice. Once again, the small but fierce Sway charges in and effortlessly eliminates them all. Fel says that since so many goblins are here, there must be a nearby colony. Mukuta adamantly refuses to go, but Sway is overly excited. Sway turns to Mukuta and says, "Please." Since Sway is too adorable, Mukuta gives in and they head toward the colony. Once there, Sway, the ever-enthusiastic slime, wipes out all the goblins with ease. Mukuta collects all the goblin ears. The amount of corpses piled up is enormous. Mukuta tells Fel that they can't leave them there since it would attract other monsters, and they are too close to the city. Burning them would be dangerous as well, as it could ignite the entire forest. Fel suggests that Sway swallow them all. Suddenly, Sway expands, growing significantly larger. He splits into countless smaller versions of himself and devours all the goblin bodies. Mukuta had initially planned to take 3 months to rank up by collecting points, but in the end, he managed to gather them all in just 1 day. Mukuta takes the goblin ears and heads to the Adventurers Guild. Everyone there is shocked by the number of goblins he hunted in a single day. Even the guild master himself wants to meet him, but Mukuta is extremely annoyed that he has drawn so much attention. The guild master's name is Willem, and he tells Mukuta that he heard he exterminated a large number of goblins. Mukuta explains that he passed by a goblin colony, which is why there were so many. Willem then tells him that the guild will also reward him for wiping out the colony. The guild master assumes that Fenrir was the one who took them all down, but Mukuta pulls Sway out of his bag. Sway's level has risen so much that he can now communicate telepathically. Sway then tells Mukuta through telepathy that he was the one who killed the goblins. Willem asks about the slime, and Mukuta explains that while Sway is indeed a slime, he is incredibly strong and unlike any other. In fact, he's even stronger than Mukuta himself. Willem remarks that their team is truly fascinating and explains that he summoned Mukuta because he received a letter from the royal palace regarding Mukuta and Fenrir. Willem then explains the contents of the letter, saying that the king has declared that Mukuta is free to live in his kingdom, and no nobles or wealthy individuals will trouble him. In return, if an emergency emergency arises in the kingdom, Mukuda must offer his assistance. Mukuda asks if it's really true that no one will bother him in the kingdom. The guild master replies that simply having a legendary beast within the kingdom makes it nearly invincible against any threat. Mukuda is overjoyed to hear that he can live freely in the kingdom without being disturbed. Willem then tells Mukuda that he wants to discuss another matter, his rank. Mukuda states that he wants to rank up from G to F so his license won't get revoked during long journeys. Willem replies that he can use his authority to promote Mukuda directly to rank C instead of F. He explains that it's well deserved, considering that Mukuda is a tamer of a legendary beast like Fenrir. However, in return, Willem wants him to take on a few quests. Mukuda declines, stating that he doesn't want to be an adventurer, but the guild master clarifies that the quests are ranked A and S, meaning they are meant for Mukuda's contracted beast, specifically Fenrir, Fel. Fel confidently accepts the quests, saying that he's very strong and there's nothing he can't handle. Willem explains that high-rank quests often pile up at the guild since there aren't many adventurers capable of taking them. Mukuda then informs Willem that he has more monsters to sell aside from the ones he previously sold. These are Chimera and Orthros monsters, extremely powerful creatures. No one in the guild has ever seen them before. Willem tells the butcher to keep this information a secret. Mukuda explains that he didn't take them out in front of others to avoid causing a major commotion. The guild master tells him that these monsters would have done more than just cause a commotion, and he appreciates that Mukuda chose to show them only to people he trusted. Willem then tells Mukuda that there are many monsters he can't even afford to buy, and some that he can't even price properly. The butcher adds that there are creatures among them that he won't be able to butcher, as he has never encountered anything like them before. Mukuda returns the monsters to his item box. The butcher admits he never imagined he would have to cut up creatures like these. Mukuda asks if they are rare, and the butcher confirms that they are extremely rare, ranked S and SS. Mukuda thinks to himself that Fel caught them effortlessly with just his little toe. Sway then pops out of the bag, saying that he wants to become strong like Fel and hunt powerful monsters too. The guild master tells Mukuda that he can return tomorrow to collect his new card, which will officially list him as rank C. That night, the three of them sit together, feeling hungry. Mukuda prepares a light meal using rock bird meat, as they had recently been eating a lot of oily food. Sway helps him with the cooking. They eat happily, but it's clear that Fel is feeling uneasy. He tells them that human cities are too cramped and suffocating. Mukuda says he understands, since Fel always sleeps outside in open areas under the stars. Mukuda places a soft mat beneath Fel, hoping it might help him feel more comfortable. The next day, Mukuda heads to the guild and receives his new card from Willem. The guild master tells him that adventurers ranked C can go up to 6 months without taking quests before their license is revoked. Willem also gives Mukuda his payment for the monsters he delivered to the guild. The first batch is worth 461 gold coins, and the meat is stored in the guild's warehouse for Mukuda to collect at any time. The second batch is worth 1,415 gold coins, and the bounty for hunting goblins and destroying their colony brings the final total to 1,946 gold coins, a massive amount. Willem informs Mukuda that this is the highest payment the guild has ever given to an adventurer. Mukuda realizes that he now has over 2,000 gold coins and becomes nervous that thieves might target him. Willem then tells Mukuda that there are 2 guild quests for him. The first is to hunt a metal lizard, and the second is to take down a herd of bloodhorn bulls. Willem requests that Mukuda prioritize hunting the metal lizard first. The guild master provides information about the metal lizard, explaining that it has made its nest on Mount Pascal, which is about 2 days away from Carolina. He also mentions that the lizard settled there because it found a suitable food source. The creature is resistant to physical attacks due to its metallic scales. Mukuda realizes how dangerous it is, noting that he had no idea it was this strong since Fel caught one so easily before. Willem then provides details about the herd of bloodhorn bulls, explaining that they have settled in the Western Plains. Their aggressive nature and large numbers make them extremely dangerous. Fel interjects with an important fact. He says that their meat is incredibly delicious. Willem confirms this, stating that their meat is highly prized among humans. Mukuda also starts thinking about different ways to cook it. The guild master adds that they will increase the purchase price for the meat since they want to buy half of it. Mukuda and Fel leave the guild, and Mukuda is relieved that they have stocked up their meat supply again. He mentions that they will head out for the quest tomorrow, but Fel says he has no problem leaving right away. Mukuda points out that if they leave now, they'll return at midnight, so it's better to wait. Mukuda also wants to buy a new bag suitable for Sway, so he visits the merchant whose caravan they saved from the bandits. There, he buys a bag, a pouch, a belt, shoes, and a sword sheath. The total comes to 11 gold coins, but but the merchant refuses to accept any payment, saying that Makuta and Fel saved his life and also fed them high-quality meat, which is worth far more than gold. The merchant then asks Makuta if he hunts red vipers. He explains that he wanted to buy some, but the guild had already sold them to a wealthy family. Makuta confirms that he does hunt them, but sells them to the guild. The merchant begs him to sell to him directly if he catches another one. Makuta bids farewell and leaves. Later, Makuta prepares a feast for Sway and Fel, cooking with passion. They enjoy their meal before sleeping, knowing that a new adventure awaits them the next day. Makuta and Fel set out for Mount Pascal the next day to hunt the metal lizard. They search for its nest, and Makuta tries to locate it using a map, but Fel simply sniffs the air and instantly figures out where it is. Fel dashes forward until he reaches a cave, stopping to declare that this must be the nest. Makuta doesn't want to enter the cave with Fel, but Fel doesn't give him a choice and rushes inside. Inside the cave, Fel, Makuta, and Sway spot the lizard. Makuta notices that it has a slight shine to it and realizes it is eating a glowing metal. Fel explains that the lizard has transformed from a metal lizard into a mithril lizard because it has been feeding on mithril ore. He adds that mithril is a light yet durable metal that is compatible with magic. However, it can easily be cut through, and magic is only half as effective when used against it. Makuta tells Fel that if that's the case, he won't be able to defeat it since it's not just a regular metal lizard. But Fel simply casts a single spell, crushing the lizard into the ground. Proud of himself, he boasts to Makuta, saying that he just needed to unleash a spell strong enough that it couldn't block. Makuta then steps forward and stores the mithril lizard in his item box. Looking around, he sees that the cave is filled with mithril ore. Makuta considers taking some of the metal to craft armor that would protect him from magic, and Sway excitedly starts gathering some as well. Suddenly, Fel approaches and asks Makuta if he plans to use the mithril to make armor. Makuta is startled and asks if Fel can read his mind. Fel feels deeply insulted and yells at Makuta, declaring that the magical barrier he places on him is 1,000,000 times stronger than that metal. Fel then tells Makuta that they should move on to their next mission. Makuta is shocked that Fel wants to complete both tasks in just 2 days. But Fel has a compelling reason. He simply wants to hunt the bulls quickly because their meat is delicious. The three of them arrive at the herd's location. Makuta tells Fel that he and Sway will wait at a distance while Fel takes care of them. Fel charges ahead, and Sway jumps out of the bag, asking Makuta where Uncle Fel went. Makuta explains that Fel went to hunt the bulls, but before he can finish speaking, Sway dashes off to join the hunt. The two of them take down the entire herd in seconds. Makuta begins storing the bulls in his item box with Sway's help. He realizes that even after giving half the meat to the guild, he will still have an enormous amount left. He starts thinking of various ways to season the meat so they won't get bored of it. Afterward, the three of them have lunch, eating the sandwiches Makuta had prepared in advance. They return to the guild, where the butcher and Willem are shocked to discover that the lizard isn't just a regular metal lizard. It is transformed into a mithril lizard. They remark that Makuta always brings them the strangest things. Makuta asks if the lizard is really that rare, and they tell him that the last recorded mithril lizard sighting was over 400 years ago. They also explain that mithril itself is an extremely rare metal, only mined from 3 mountains in the world. They tell Makuta that he must hand over the mithril lizard to the guild, adding that the city's ruler will likely present the lizard's skin to the king, along with the news that a mithril-rich mountain has been discovered. Willem reassures Makuta that, of course, they won't take the lizard for free. He can negotiate the price to reach up to 5,000 gold coins. Makuta is stunned by the number, and the butcher jokingly tells him he should be envious of his earnings since he can now live comfortably for the rest of his life. But Makuta is genuinely overwhelmed and tells the butcher that these massive sums of money are starting to terrify him. Willem says that they won't be able to take the lizard from him until they can gather the funds for it. He asks Makuta to keep the discovery a complete secret. Before Willem can even finish telling Makuta that he needs to complete the bull hunt as soon as possible, Makuta pulls out the entire herd at once and declares that the mission is already complete. The butcher and Willem are utterly speechless at the speed of it all. After leaving the guild, Makuta talks to Fel and Sway about how anxious and uneasy he feels. He worries that his peaceful life will completely collapse under all these recent developments. But as always, Fel has an incredibly sharp perspective on the truly important things. He asks Makuta about the bull meat and demands that he prepare their meal quickly. As usual, the three of them gather around for food, lifting their spirits as they eat. Makuta prepares an extravagant meal for them, and they are delighted because the taste is incredible. They try the meat with different sauces, filling themselves to the brim. After eating, Fel tells Makuta that he no longer eats raw meat unless absolutely necessary because he has become accustomed to Makuta's delicious cooking. Makuta blushes, thinking Fel is just flattering him, but Sway enthusiastically agrees with Fel's statement. Mukuta thinks to himself that, thanks to Fel and Sway, he is able to enjoy his life in this world, and he should put more effort into making them even tastier food. At night, in his room, Mukuta searches for sweets online to offer to the wind goddess Ninrir. He is peacefully choosing, but then Ninrir suddenly speaks to him, demanding that he send a large amount. Mukuta asks her what kinds she likes, and she lists a long selection of sweets, telling him to send them immediately. When the offering is sent, Mukuta suddenly hears voices from multiple people. It turns out to be the goddesses of fire, earth, and water. They make an agreement with him. They will grant him minor blessings like Ninrir in exchange for weekly tributes of sweets. The fire and earth goddesses grant him their blessings, and Mukuta asks the water goddess to give her blessing to Sway instead. When Mukuta checks his status, he sees that he and Sway have indeed gained new blessings. He decides to keep this a secret and not tell anyone about it. He and Sway agree to test their magic the next day to see how the blessings have affected them. The following day, Mukuta's fire spell is far larger than before, and his earth magic is so powerful that it topples trees. Despite using a large amount of magic, he doesn't feel exhausted at all. Sway also tests his magic, seeing how much the blessing has enhanced his abilities. However, Sway turns out to be far stronger than Mukuta, effortlessly knocking down multiple trees. Seeing Sway's strength, Fel suggests that they have a sparring match. Mukuta refuses, saying that Sway is still small and shouldn't be compared to Fel. He then begins testing his earth magic further, finding that he can easily create walls from the ground. Fel leaves him to his training and goes hunting. When Fel returns, Mukuta shows him a house he built using earth magic. He declares that from now on, he will create houses during their travels so they can sleep more comfortably. Fel then tells Mukuta that he has hunted a viper for him to give to the merchant who had asked for one. Mukuta starts making a massive amount of food and buys a meat grinder from his original world to make burgers for Fel and Sway. He begins grinding the meat, but Sway helps him and works much faster. Mukuta makes a large batch, storing some while cooking fresh ones for Fel and Sway. The two of them are extremely happy and enjoy the meal, especially since there's cheese inside the burgers. Afterward, Mukuta wants to wash his clothes, but the soap in this world is of very poor quality and doesn't produce any foam. He decides to buy soap from his world and sell it in this one, telling Fel that he is going back to being a merchant. Mukuta starts purchasing soap online and transfers it into bottles from this world to avoid suspicion. After buying a lot of soap and shampoo, he wants to take a bath but realizes there's no private bath or tub where he can comfortably bathe. The next day, he visits the leather merchant he bought Sway's bag from and gives him the viper skin he promised. The merchant compensates Mukuta with 50 gold coins. Mukuta then tells the merchant that he came to seek his advice about a particular idea. When he mentions that he is a member of the merchant guild, the merchant is surprised, saying it's the first time he has seen someone registered in 2 guilds. Mukuta takes out several bottles filled with shampoo, soap, lotion, and cream and asks the merchant if these products could sell well. The merchant insists on inspecting them first. Mukuta explains each product in detail, describing what they do and how to use them. The merchant is incredibly impressed and says he is lucky to know Mukuta, admitting that he can't believe he is personally acquainted with him. The merchant also mentions that his wedding anniversary is approaching and that his wife told him she doesn't want ordinary gifts like bags or accessories since she already has plenty. He then tells Mukuta that these products would make the perfect gift for his wife since she loves bathing. Mukuta picks up on this detail and realizes from their conversation that the merchant has a private bath and tub. The merchant explains that he had them built specifically at his wife's request. Mukuta is shocked to learn that people in this world actually have baths and tubs, but at the same time, he is delighted because this means he can buy one for himself. Mukuta asks the merchant if he can see his bath. The merchant explains that building one is very expensive, costing several hundred gold coins, and that any merchant who owns a bath is considered successful. Mukuta tells himself that he wants one no matter the cost. Since he has plenty of money, he can afford it. The merchant then offers to introduce him to someone who builds baths if he is interested. They part ways after Mukuta gives the soap and shampoo to the merchant so he can try them out and decide if he wants to buy them as gifts for his wife. The next day, Mukuta visits the merchant again, and both the merchant and his wife are eagerly waiting for him. They tell him that the products are amazing and that they made their skin softer and their hair healthier. They ask him to sell them a large quantity so they can resell them in their shop to nobles. Mukuta agrees and finalizes a deal, packaging the soap in bottles from this world before selling them. Mukuta returns to Fel and Sway, exhausted from transferring the soap and shampoo into new bottles. He reassures them that the deal went well. Fel asks him what he plans to do next, and Mukuta replies that he is going to meet the guild master since he has returned from his travels. At the guild, Mukuta hears that stray wyverns have appeared, and no one one has hunted them yet. Many people have spotted them recently, and they are high-ranked monsters. Mukuda enters the guild master's office and sees a small mountain of gold coin bags. He is stunned by their sheer size. The guild master tells him that the matter has finally been settled and that the city's ruler is grateful to Mukuda for discovering a mithril mine. As a reward, he is given 5,800 gold coins. The first thought that comes to Mukuda's mind is that he can now easily afford his own private bath and tub. However, the receptionist suddenly rushes in and informs the guild master that a swarm of wyverns has attacked a low-ranked adventurer party in the Western Plains. The guild master explains that the wyverns are searching for the bloodhorned bulls that Fel and Sway had already hunted. The guild master asks about the damage, and the receptionist reports that everyone escaped, but most of them were poisoned due to severe injuries. There are a large number of wounded adventurers in the guild building, but there aren't enough healing potions to treat them, and they are on the verge of death. The guild master orders everyone to go out and search for potions to buy as quickly as possible. However, Mukuda steps forward and takes out the potions that Sway had made, saying they might be enough. As soon as the potions are applied to the wounded, they heal completely, leaving everyone astonished by Mukuda. After treating all the injured adventurers, the guild master rallies the remaining fighters, telling them that they must defend their country and fight the wyverns. He declares that any adventurer ranked C or higher must participate in the battle. However, Fel suddenly enters and declares that he alone will take down the wyverns. In return, he will keep all of their meat since it's delicious. The guild master adds that they will also pay him a monetary reward. Fel says they will set off for the mission immediately. The guild master wants some adventurers to accompany them, but Fel refuses, saying there is no need for them and that they would only get in the way. The guild master bows to Fel and pleads with him to protect their city. He also asks Mukuda to take care of himself. Fel takes Mukuda and Sway, and they head to where the wyverns are located. Fel tells Sway that he will teach him how to fight against a flying opponent. The two of them charge in and attack the wyverns. Fel instructs Sway to aim for their wings or heads to bring them down to the ground, where they can be fought more easily. Fel and Sway form an unstoppable duo, battling the wyverns. Mukuda watches from a distance, but one of the wyverns notices him and attacks. Fel and Sway rescue him at the last second. After completing their mission, they sit down and Mukuda prepares them a delicious meal using the burgers he made earlier. They enjoy their food and are extremely satisfied. Meanwhile, everyone at the guild is anxiously waiting for their return, eager to find out what happened. The guild master continues to wait, even though Mukuda and Fel are taking a long time to return. When they finally arrive, the guild master rushes over and asks how things went. Mukuda informs him that they successfully eliminated all the wyverns in the plains. Fel confirms Mukuda's statement, saying he couldn't sense the presence of any more wyverns in the area. All the adventurers cheer in celebration, which surprises Mukuda. The guild master explains that it's only natural for them to be this happy because even if all the adventurers had gone out to fight the wyverns, even if they had succeeded, at least half of them would have died. The guild master also says that because they were delayed, all the adventurers had been worried. After all, if even a Fenrir couldn't handle the wyverns, how could they stand a chance? But Mukuda doesn't have the heart to tell him that they were late simply because they had a picnic and were eating. However, Fel, in his usual straightforward manner, casually reveals that they took their time because, after defeating the wyverns, they stayed to enjoy their meal. He adds that wyverns are too weak to be a real problem for him. Then, Sway jumps in and cheerfully declares that they ate burgers. Sway and Fel continue talking about the food and praising it, leaving Mukuda extremely embarrassed. Mukuda hands over the wyvern corpses to the guild and tells them that he only wants the meat. The guild master offers to buy all the other valuable parts, but since they don't have enough money to afford everything, they decide to purchase only half, with the butchering being done for free. Later, Mukuda returns to his room and prepares offerings for the goddesses of water, fire, earth, and wind. This time, the offerings aren't just sweets. They include desserts, refreshments, shampoo, and other items. The goddesses are delighted and continue to bless him. The next day, as they walk through the city, everyone is talking about them. People say that they defeated 13 wyverns and saved the city. Mukuda continues on his way until he reaches the store where he will finally fulfill his dream. After that, Mukuda starts preparing lunch for the three of them, but Fel is late. To pass the time, Mukuda decides to cook a dish that takes longer to prepare until Fel returns. A little while later, Fel arrives carrying a massive corpse. Mukuda asks what it is, and Fel replies that his battle with the wyverns was too boring, so he decided to find another fight. He encountered a fire dragon, sparred with it for a bit, then took it down and brought it back. Mukuda doesn't know what they're supposed to do with a dragon, but Fel simply tells him that fire dragon meat tastes delicious. Mukuda replies that the problem isn't the taste. The real issue is that his item box is getting filled with rare monsters, and he can't find anyone capable of butchering and processing them properly. Fel suggests taking the dragon to the guild and seeing if they can handle it. Mukuta thinks for a moment and agrees. Then, he asks Fel about the food, and Mukuta tells him that he cooked 2 dishes since Fel was late. Fel, feeling extremely hungry, wants to start eating right away, but Mukuta stops him and says that he needs to take a bath first. Fel refuses to admit that he's dirty, but Mukuta tells him there will be no food unless he bathes first. He adds that both he and Sui have already bathed, and if Fel doesn't, he will be the only one who isn't clean. With no other choice, Fel finally agrees. Mukuta buys pet grooming products online and brushes Fel's fur to remove excess hair. He then asks Sui to pour plenty of water on Fel before shampooing him. Eventually, Fel starts enjoying the bath. After the cleaning session is over, it's time for Fel and Sui's favorite activity, eating. They devour the food enthusiastically and immediately ask for more. At that moment, Mukuta brings up an important topic and tells them that from now on, they should take a bath twice a month. Fel is shocked and asks if it wasn't just a one-time thing. Mukuta responds that since Fel is now clean, he needs to maintain his cleanliness. To encourage Fel further, Mukuta asks Sui whether he likes Uncle Fel more before or after the bath. Sui happily replies that he loves the shiny, fluffy version of Uncle Fel. Since Sui is so adorable, Fel gives in and accepts the idea of regular baths, saying that he has no choice if Sui likes him better this way. The next day, Mukuta, Fel, and Sui go to the guild and present the dragon to the guild master and the butcher. Both of them exclaim at the same time that it is absolutely impossible for them to process the dragon. The butcher explains that every part of the dragon is extremely valuable, including its scales, claws, and even its internal organs, and that he could never butcher such a rare and precious creature. Mukuta had expected this response, but Fel casually states that he can cut up anything since he only cares about the meat. Mukuta tells him that there are other valuable parts they should make use of. The guild master then tells Mukuta that he knows someone who might be able to butcher dragons. Both Mukuta and Fel get excited and ask him to tell them where to find this person. The guild master explains that this expert is far from Carolina, in a city called Dolan. He says that the guild master in Dolan knows a great deal about dragons and might be able to help them process it. Mukuta and Fel decide to travel to Dolan. Along the way, they will stop by the ocean so Mukuta can cook Fel the seafood he has been craving. They bid farewell to everyone they know in the city and set off for Dolan, where new adventures and even more delicious meals surely await them.